Welcome to the Honest Mamas podcast, where we talk about the emotional and spiritual aspects of the motherhood journey. We are a team of honest mamas. Myself, Melissa, Sophie, and Claire. We are psychotherapists, moms, and friends. Join us as we get real about the topics that matter to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Honest Mamas podcast. Today's conversation is with Veronica Geretz on the topic of empowered single motherhood. As well as a mother, Veronica is a yoga scholar, teacher, and activist. She truly is a beautiful human being. She has taught yoga to former child combatants in Sierra Leone, West Africa, and helped found Yoga Strength Sierra Leone. She currently teaches at the Pomegranate Yoga Center in Marin, California. As is evident when you listen to Veronica speak, she inspires harmony in whatever she does. Through her path of yoga and motherhood, she is committed to promoting peace. What I loved about today's conversation was that Veronica shared some beautiful and inspiring thoughts on how she decided not to live in fear as a single mom. She also offers words of wisdom to single moms out there when confronted with misconceptions and judgments regarding single motherhood. Here's my conversation with Veronica. Let's get started. Hi, Veronica. I'm so happy you're joining us today. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sophie.
So let's dive on in, shall we? Okay, so I just wanted to begin by saying, since I've known you, Veronica, I've noticed that you seem to be an empowered single mama. You know, you seem to live your life with a lot of confidence, and that's always inspired me personally. So that's part of the reason I've wanted to connect with you today and talk to you and share some of your story with our listeners. I've noticed that you don't seem to run your life in fear. Now, that's from the outside. That's what I'm getting. And I'd love to hear more about that, because in an understandable way, there are a lot of what ifs of being a single mom. There are a lot of things potentially to be concerned about and afraid about. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit, or tell the listeners as well, a little bit about your journey and how it began. And how it's influenced this type of mothering.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question to start off with, where it began. I didn't plan to have my son. I didn't plan to be a mother as early as I became a mother, and had gone abroad to Sierra Leone for my master's program in peace and justice studies. And while there, fell in love with a man and came back to the United States to finish my master's program, and found out that I had created a child. And that took me by surprise completely, because I had a plan of a much different future, at least for the next 5 or 10 years in my mind. Definitely anticipated climbing the ladder of success that had been laid out for me. Kind of the traditional ladder of success of going through your academic career and then launching that into a very robust professional career. And so when I found out that I was pregnant, I had actually gone to a Planned Parenthood and found that out there. And amidst that experience, was offered the opportunity when I left Planned Parenthood to continue with them if I had wanted to terminate my pregnancy, because that is the work that they offer, which is a wonderful offering when needed. And I had, up until that point, been quite pro-life in my mind. I had gone to Washington, D.C. on a couple of pro-life marches even. And when I got handed the information, delivered the information by the nurse that I was pregnant, and then offered those papers if I wanted to continue along with them, sat there for a moment in disbelief and considered that for the first time in my life. Felt a sense of empathy for what I had previously cast over to something the other does. And so I walked out shaking and not ready to give up my vision to be in the Peace Corps and to go on further in my academic career, and couldn't even start the car in the parking lot. I was shaking and sobbing so hard. And the only thing I could think to do was to reach out to my sister, my best friend. And I called her, and I remember being on the phone with her and her just so worried because I couldn't get a word out. So she was like, "Did you get in an accident? Are you okay? Just tell me you're okay." And so I was able to take a breath. Power of the breath was definitely there with me, and conveyed to her what had just been told to me. And within the conversation we had in that parking lot, which was about 45 minutes, couldn't have been a little more or less, she brought me to the reality of knowing that I was emotionally mature, which was a blessing that many women who find out they're pregnant unexpectedly maybe do not have. Mm-hmm. And also that I was going to be finishing my master's degree. So I would, if I chose to continue with the pregnancy, I would be finished with my master's degree. And what an amazing place that is to be launching into motherhood from. Whereas a lot of mothers maybe start earlier in their mothering and strive toward that amidst mothering. And I would have that done. So really affirming me in my position of life and just reminding me of her experience, saying it will be the best thing you've chosen to do with your life, albeit full of struggle. So when she had brought me to that place of seeing the positive just in that moment from the depth of despair that I had really quickly dropped into, I realized when I hung up the phone with her, if I were to say yes, I needed to do it in this moment. I needed to make the decision and be firm in the decision that if I choose to have my child, if I continue with the pregnancy, I am all in. There's no fear. There's no room for that in my path forward. And just felt very much like I was standing at a crossroad and knowing that if I turn to the right and I say yes to this choice of having this child, I cannot even think about the path to the left. It's not going to serve my path. So saying yes to being a mother and doing it in a way that felt available to me, knowing I'd be on my own raising my son because of the context of his father being present and not able to be present for some time, I felt like I had to really be on board. And thankfully, that has meant lots of affirming, very mindful, directive thought process for me when I notice now the challenge arise of a day where I feel like I haven't had a moment to myself, and I can hear the thoughts begin to tempt me toward feeling sorry for myself. I acknowledge in that moment, I made this choice. Thankfully, I got to make the choice, and I feel very blessed that we have that right. And knowing that I made the choice and that I had that gives me the grounding to say, I can handle this. I took this on. I know I can handle this and follow the right path.
Wow. I'm sitting here with chills all over my body. Just really moved by such a clear and vulnerable share. And I don't doubt the listeners hear the power in that. And, it's so palpable, and I can feel it. It comes through when I listen to you, and I'm wondering what it's like for you as a parent, as a mother, to parent from this place, to relate to your son from this place. How has it helped? And what's been challenging about it, if you wouldn't mind sharing with us.
Yeah. I don't remember where this quote or phrase came from. I believe my father shared it with me, and I think he might have taken it from a famous sports player, but it's the quote that is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so that or feels kind of like a part of the mindful choosing to not be in the fear that I've taken, which you've given me the words to describe it as so wonderfully, that. And the challenge that that's brought in raising Ilo is that I sometimes apply a high expectation on him being able to really direct and choose his thoughts along with me. So the challenge is that I think I may have very high expectations of him. And remembering that he is only at this point a 6-year-old. And when I see the moments of kind of the way it makes me feel vulnerable when he feels challenged with our context, whether it's questions around recognizing the difference between our family as a mom and a son compared to other families with 2 partners and a child, or questions around why we can't have material things that some folks can, because we are definitely on the lower end of income. And the way that can trigger me in recognizing the thoughts that I was speaking of before around knowing they're not going to serve me, to start feeling bad for ourselves. I think the challenge is in tending to him compassionately and being patient with him, getting to that space with me too. So just allowing myself to kind of be in that space of acknowledging that it is a different life that we have than some, and far more privileged and able to thrive than others when put into perspective. But to really be able to sit with him in those moments while not letting myself fall into the rumination of it with him, and not be angry with him when he feels those things, which sometimes is the unconscious response that can arise. Even though God love him, he doesn't mean anything bad with those questions or those recognitions. Those are just the reality.
Wow. That's so powerful. It's a really powerful way of showing up and parenting your child. And I'm just aware of how much self-awareness and hanging with the discomfort that requires. And well, we definitely want to hear how it's benefited and the celebrations of it as well. Please share.
I think that he's seeing me model the resiliency that we know now more than ever. There's so much research coming out around the benefit of resiliency and what we can offer as parents to our children. And so by choosing to not live in fear, and by also knowing that doesn't mean pretending that anything is perfect and that there aren't the challenges. So, I've been reading this book by Brené Brown called Daring Greatly, and she speaks around vulnerability a lot. And so kind of tying into the way that it has brought us, it challenges me in the way that Ilo and I relate and how he sees our context and speaks to it. Allowing myself to be authentic and be vulnerable in it, I feel like is instilling in him exactly what is supposed to be instilled, or what I have chosen to be one of the priorities that I'm trying to cultivate within him, which is that sense of resiliency. So knowing that doesn't come, resiliency doesn't come when you've got it all laid out for you and when there aren't the challenges. And so kind of recognizing the blessing that it is to have these kind of built-in dynamics of being a single mother and at the lower end of the financial spectrum. And instead of seeing those as the challenges, that they can be also recognizing that it is a blessing in disguise, because it is just handing me the opportunity to model to Ilo how to acknowledge that that's our reality and yet still choose to be saying yes.
Wow, what an incredible reframe that I can only imagine is an ongoing practice. It's not like a switch. It's something that you're probably presented with every moment, and you make a conscious choice around to frame it that way. Yeah, it's incredibly inspiring to hear that. And I'm wondering too, I'm getting a sneak peek into your process and how you're holding this quality of parenting, ILO. I'm wondering from the outside, when people have possibly misconceptions that are well-intended, or well-intentioned people have misconceptions about maybe viewing you as a single mom or single moms in general. I'm wondering if you have any words of wisdom or inspiration for any single moms out there that may be listening. So I guess that's a two-part question. If you've run into some of those judgments or misconceptions, and what you may say to listeners who might experience the same.
Yeah, I definitely ran into it. And it ties a little bit back into the first question that you asked, in that when I was considering all of the immediate repercussions of saying yes to being a mother, a single mother, and a mother of a child who's half Black, just kind of immediately considering some of the impacts that would have for me. I grew up in Ohio in a small town and have a very loving family and a conservative religious family, and knew that the information, the news of me having a child out of wedlock and kind of in a way that might be disruptive in their perspective of the ladder of success that I was climbing, I knew that I would be facing judgment right away from my family, not from my immediate family. My siblings are certainly always holding me with lots of unconditional love, and my family has now certainly come to that place. But in the immediate moment, there is such a stigma around a single mother, and still in some places, unfortunately, stigmas around raising a mixed race child. And I was aware that I'd be facing both of those in terms of my family's response. So I think I have had to continue, and I still do. I mean, I was just speaking about it this past week with a friend of mine around the anxiety that can sometimes creep its head up for me around the projection that other people might be thinking of me as a poor single mother, and all of the ways that can be so misrepresenting who I am and what I have to offer and what our unique context is and the light that my son and I bring together. So I chose in that moment of choosing to have him also to really choose the people that I have in my life close to me, and to say to my family who responded with some resentment toward me, I'm not going to want to speak with you until you feel ready to love me and my son fully. And I love you, and I understand this is hard for you. And I need to only have positive affirmations right now, because there's no room for anybody doing anything but that for me. So I do feel similarly now that if it feels like there is judgment in a negative way, not well intended, I'm just really clear that there's just no room for that at all within my life or my son's life. And then when it comes with good intention, when there's sympathy for my context, we're here in Marin in a very well-to-do community, and there are certainly moments where I can feel folks respond to hearing my story in ways of, wow, that must be so hard. You must just feel so exhausted. And I understand why they might think that, for sure. But I feel very fortunate that I was predisposed to mindfulness and recognizing the power of choice in every thought and how it directs the next thought. And certainly I don't do it right all the time at all. And I can catch myself in those patterns of not thinking toward what is going to let me thrive. But I respond to them with the thought of, have you ever considered that it actually might be even easier for me. As a single mother, when I put my son to sleep, I get to give all my emotions to myself. I don't have to share them with a partner, and tend to someone else's needs, which, of course, there is support that a partner can provide at times that may outweigh that in a partnership. And yet I see often a lot of struggling partnerships. And when I hear the weight of that, in addition to the challenges of parenthood, I think, wow, I'm so grateful that I get to go into my own world every night after 8 p.m. And that I get to take full responsibility for all the glorious things that come out of my child, and that I don't have to process decisions with somebody else. I get to make all the calls. And there's a sense of, certainly that can feel overwhelming at times if that's how I allow myself to see it. I choose to be on the other side of viewing it with gratitude that I have that control, really. Certainly feeling support from my community, which is really, I don't necessarily feel like I'm a single mom. I feel like I'm so held by a tribe here, that people really, I've accepted that I need support from others in this role, and acknowledged that, still have to struggle with the way that forces me to practice humility when I need support and don't have a partner to ask for it from. That people are so happy to support and be of help within my family, because I am also willing to do that for them. And so really seeing that we're not an isolated, it kind of has forced me to not be an isolated nuclear family in a home all by myself, but that I have to see our interconnectedness with our community, or else I would be pretty devastated.
Right. You know, I listen to you and I hear so much strength, Veronica. I hear so much vitality. So just to back up a bit, it was puzzling to me. I mean, I could understand the questioning of someone saying, "Oh, you must be so exhausted," and so forth. But when I hear you talk and how I've known you to be, you seem so vital. And I'm wondering about the connection of being mindful of your choices and really framing it in a way for yourself where you do have choice. That something about that posture seems like it lends itself to vitality, that you're not the victim in that moment, that you actually are empowered in that moment and you do have a choice. And that this isn't happening to you, that every moment you get to dialogue with what's occurring in front of you and choose. And I can't help but think that adds to that vitality in you. And again, it's really, I can feel it, and it's so inspiring. And your boundaries and your clarity around who you let into your community, and it's just very clear. And that clarity for me is just so inspiring. And you mentioned community as well, and how you really allow that in and call that in, and the value of it. I can really get how that you make all the difference in the world in raising a child on your own. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll just quickly respond that I, by grace or serendipitously, or however you want to frame it, I took on a yoga teacher training. I had decided to take the yoga training prior to knowing I was going to be pregnant, and happened to start my teacher training a few weeks after I found out I was pregnant. And so have been birthing and raising the relationship that I have with yoga alongside being a mother, and feel like it has made 100% of the difference. I certainly feel aware that I don't want to pretend to not honor that there are parts of who I am that have helped me view and take on this role of being a single mother the way that I have, and yet there is no way I would be able to be doing it as I have been, and really truly feel quite stoked on it if it weren't for the presence and mindfulness and relationship with my breath, really, really important there, that yoga has instilled within me.
Yeah, I can feel it. It's a real gift, actually, to sit and talk with you today and to be in the presence of you live in the moment, slowing yourself down at times or dropping in a little deeper in moments when need be. I can feel like I said, the word before, vitality and aliveness in the moments that you're moving through. And it's allowing me to do the same. And I don't doubt that it's affecting our listeners. So again, just what a gift that that embodiment offers all of us who are listening to you today. And I am so grateful that, you had the courage and stepped in and were able to be so vulnerable here today and offer to all of us your story. Because I have no doubt that it's benefiting us all. So thank you very much for being here, Veronica. And I hope we get a chance to talk again in the future.
Thank you so much for having me, Sophie. It's been an honor to re-speak my narrative. Thank you for inviting me into that.
You're welcome. Until we talk again.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. I felt so peaceful after talking with Veronica today. Talking with her was truly like practicing yoga. She is a woman walking her talk. I was really inspired by her presence and how she embodies her mission in her parenting and her teaching. I have so much respect for how Veronica shares her honest and very real struggle around parenting as a single mom while holding onto her core values of nonviolent communication and promoting peace. To get our show notes and more information, go to www.honestmamas.com/episode 10. Also join our community on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/Honest Mamas Community, where these conversations will surely continue.